thank you for joining us, Patrick. I'm really psyched about you wanting to join us here and talk gaming with us. This is the first time trying
I'm
something like
astonished to
this.
get the invite.
Well, that's nice. There's a lot of people in here playing your games, and there's a lot of people who've, as I've mentioned to you, have bought the games because we kind of get each other hyped on things. That's one of the cool things about this Discord server. There's lots of different games being shared. Um, but I was wondering if you should start, just uh, maybe getting to know some more about you. I mean, for how long have you been a miniature gamer, and what kind of games have you played before your own? Because Hardwired is not that old a game.
Mm, right. Um, I got into toy soldiers and military miniatures when I was 13. So you're talking 43 years ago. Um, my stepfather took me to Minifigs USA, which was in Pine Plains, New York. It's funny, I was remembering this the other day. I have a distinct memory as a this might be too much information, but I'll just in the spirit of being honest, I have a distinct memory as a kid of not remembering meeting any adult who I thought was actually happy. And I don't know if that makes sense, but that was my perception as a kid that I didn't know any real happy adults. And when I was 13, my stepfather took me to the minifigs factory. And I remember walking in and seeing this guy who was there on a Saturday all by himself, spin casting toy soldiers, doing whatever it was he was doing. And he seemed genuinely happy, like a decent human being who was sort of happy with his life. And I'm not into sports. Separate story. I was in an automobile accident when I was a kid, so I never got into sports. I read a lot, and which meant that I read history. And so walking in that day for the first time on a Saturday on an off day, my stepfather and I were the only people there, and there's bins, huge metal bins with cardboard containers filled with toy soldiers. And I'm just astonished at everything from 12-pound cannon to Byzantine heavy cavalry. Uh, yeah. And then we went into this one side room where he had scratch built a 28 millimeter scale pirate ship. And he had all the little cannons and the rigging and the pirates. And he talked about his gaming group and how they got together and they each made their own pirate ship and own pirate crew, and how they had just finished up refighting the Battle of Waterloo. They had rented out a school gymnasium during the summer months and then refought the battle by setting up the whole floor like the field of Waterloo. And I was captivated. That was it. I had never met anybody, so he was happy, and then he also seemed to understand the same things that I was into. Left that day with a whole bunch of different miniatures, particularly American War of Independence, a bunch of British Grenadiers, and um, anyway, I was hooked. And I, at one point, I was so hooked, I actually set my game table on fire. I don't know if you want to hear that story, but I
Please.
set, yeah. So my parents gave me this little room in the basement that had that one of those basement that the only access to it was it was all walled off with concrete block. And my parents at one point had used it as a dark room. It was small and narrow and had one of those little high up basement windows. But other than that, it was pitch black in there, especially if you put a cloth over that little window. And so I had made all of these I had those little model trees, and I had split rail fences that I'd made out of matchsticks, and I had cardboard houses that I had made, and I turned off all the lights, and I recreated a British raid on an American town, and I set up the militia in the woods, and I turned off all the lights and I set my houses on fire as if the British were coming in and raiding and burning the barns and everything. And I want to tell you that it looked really cool for about 10 minutes. And then I got in trouble. But yeah, so I didn't burn down the house, but I did scorch my game table and get grounded for like a month.
And what so what rule systems has it been a lot of historicals, because that's far from the games you've has have released.
Yeah. So, hmm.
I mean, have you been around Warhammer like all of us?
Actually, no, I haven't. Um, I built, I built models and I collected toy soldiers and I made variations. So I grew up with my stepfather. One of the few things that we did together was play Avalon Hill board games, the little cardboard chits and the hex boards, Gettysburg, Panzerblitz, Panzerleader.
Yeah,
That sound familiar?
yeah, I do.
So when my kids were younger, I you would buy little 1/72nd Italieri or Eschi miniatures, and we would glue them to stands of cardboard. And so we had shooters and chargers and command, and we would move them around. We made very simple rules with D6s, and so I think so. Those were the first rule sets that I actually played with. I wasn't familiar with. I'm like sort of knew about it on the periphery. And then after a hiatus of a few years, I got into Vor and Void. Remember the old Vor Neo-Soviets and the Union and the Growlers and the Zyke? It
Haven't played
was
it
put out by
myself, but I know
RAFM.
Torben
Oh
has been
yes,
playing a lot of
oh
those.
yes. Just wanted to chime in that it wasn't known really in Denmark, but I have the complete catalog of all War books and Void books on the shelf. So yeah, I remember those games quite fondly as well.
Right. And so at around the same time, I got invited to be part of the after school program in the local middle schools here. So that sort of kick-started my getting involvement in the hobby back up, to more just a little personal pursuit to kind of getting back out there and interacting with people and with kids. So I did that in 2 middle schools here for about 5 years, and the response was overwhelming. I ended up renting an empty shop next to my glass studio, and on the the weekends, kids from the classes would come and they would game. I set up 5 different gaming tables and a paint station, and so I would run this kind of game room for my students, the after school program students. And it was huge. I mean, it was like pizza, Chinese food, and gaming for 10 hours every Saturday for about 4 years. And that's when we got into that. I think War Machine kind of started up at that time. And that's when GW and Necromunda and Space Hulk and all that sort of came on my radar screen much more prominently. That sort of answer your question?
Yeah, but so how do you get from that to? I mean, one thing is making simple rules for playing with your kids. I've been doing the same with mine. To actually sit down and write a game system. You've published quite a lot, and you've been publishing fiction as an author. When did that start compared to releasing Hardwired? That's your first release game, right?
Yes, Hardwired was my first. Yeah. I think I started writing fiction when the economy went into its slump, back in 2009, 2010. Um, and I had the first scenes in this story kind of popped into my head and I wrote them down. And then the whole thing just started spooling out like a movie reel, just gone crazy. And it became a put up or shut up. I say to myself, oh, I always want to write a book, or someday I could write a book, or I read somebody's bad book and I go, geez, I could do better than that. And so finally it became a put up or shut up. And so I wrote my first book and I self-published it back in 2010. Yeah, and so don't read it because it's terrible. But I just kind of kept doing it. Because I'm self-employed. I have, so you have, it's feast or famine. So you have good weeks, you have good months, and then you have months where there's nothing and you're hoping the phone rings. So I just decided to fill that empty space with writing fiction. And I've always been writing, game rules. And one of my favorite computer games is The Stalker, The Shadow of Chernobyl, Clear Sky, and Call of Pripyat. And
Excellent
so
games.
yeah, and so I was completely captivated by those games. I had never played anything like them. They're completely different from your American frantic 9-inch nails, run and gun, kill everything in sight, be on meth, and do that. And so I was hooked. And so I began to try and translate that experience and that setting and that game to the tabletop. Um, and so Yeah, that was the first set of rules full set of rules that I wrote was called Cleared to Engage. And I was using those to recreate Stalker. And then Phil at Osprey must have been following my blog and had seen some Stalker battle reports using Cleared to Engage. And he contacted me and said, hey, would you be interested in polishing these up, cleaning them up, and making them specifically for us and for the Stalker, bake in the Stalker setting. And I was like, yes, I'd be totally interested. And here I am.
So that was before Hardwired?
It was actually. It it takes the pipeline for games, at least with Osprey, is about 2 years. And so Clear to Engage was already, so the rough version of Zona Alpha was already done. And so that was already, so Zona Alpha was in the works. And then we had, because I game with so many different people and you're trying to accommodate different people's taste and preferences, and you're trying to make sure everybody can play. I don't have the room for 7 guys to play with huge armies. So we started, and a couple of the guys are really into, yeah, thanks, Andres. A couple of the guys are really into RPGs, and that's where they come to the group from. So we've been playing D&D 5th edition. And then after that, I wanted to get back to the tabletop. And so the mechanics for Hardwire, that action dice pool and the polyhedral dice, just dropped into my head. I mean, that's the best way to say it. It sort of dropped into my head, almost fully developed sort of overnight. And then I just started writing Hardwired down and said, hey, let's test these rules. We can all play together. We can all play cooperatively. We'll fight against the table. And we'll put all these cool cyberpunk miniatures to use. And Hardwired was born out of that. Margin, yeah, Void on Mini Realms. Yep. Sorry, I'm reading and talking at the same time here.
Yeah, please do. Please do. So when you had, like an outline and you sat down and you just wrote Hardwired and Zona Alpha was already in the pipeline for publication with Osprey.
Mm-hmm.
Did it occur to you, or did you try going back to Osprey saying, "Here's another manuscript. You want that as well"?
I think I floated it by them, but they had already signed on to do, what's that big one? Reality's Edge or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was already in the pipeline for them, and they're like, well, no, we don't want 2 cyberpunk games.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because a couple of us been wondering about these blue book series and how it's how they're done, and it's new info to me to to hear that Phil contacted you because he saw something you were working on, saw your blog, and asked you to flesh it out. I know some of the rules has been um, also directly ordered, like Rogue Stars was ordered because Reality's Edge was a long time in the making, and they wanted
Mm.
something cyberpunk, sci-fi-ish out there while waiting. So that's like an ordered job. Um, but I thought Hardwired was first.
There was a beta version of Hardwired that I wrote and put it out, but Zona Alpha, well, Clear to Engage was the first full set of rules. That was the sort of the first iteration of this what became the Zona Alpha rules. So Zona Alpha was already in the pipeline, and then I wrote the beta version of Hardwired, and I had them on my website for free. And then I thought, gosh, I should hire an illustrator and actually tidy these up a bit instead of just being a few pages of notes like good luck, I hope you can figure this out. I knew what I meant when I wrote it, to make it a little bit more articulate, a little bit more concise, and hire an illustrator and have a cover and everything like that, and just put it out for short money and see if other people would be interested in playing.
And has it been doing well enough, or are you
Sure,
surprised
it has
by?
actually.
I mean,
I'm astonished. I mean, that anybody wants to, play my games is really, I'm waiting for somebody to sort of tap me on the shoulder and go, yeah, just kidding, go home now. Um, People seem to play it. People enjoy it. People get the intention behind it. I mean, it's not for everybody, but people that do like it, realize that it's adaptable and you can slot in any miniature. You can change the setting if you want. I mean, there've been guys who've come to me and said, "Yeah, we were playing British commandos, against World War II Nazis, SS guards and stuff." And so, cool.
you are
I'm happy.
pretty clear with the intention of your rules in the start of all the three rule books that I have. They are simple rules. They're a sandbox. You can build upon them. Quick, fun, simple. Um, but that's of course not for everybody. So you said Hardwired popped into your mind, and you slept on it and pretty much got up and laid it out. But how much time does it take for a book like Hardwired or Zona Alpha? There's Osprey's own editors, I guess, on that, and Nightwatch, which is much thicker. How much
Mm-hmm.
work time is in a system like this?
Mm.
Not necessarily counting hours, but in terms of weeks or months or.
I wrote Hardwired in about a month. Um, Zona Alpha was built on, like I said, the previous iteration, and then to flesh it out took a number of months, and then there was a lot of back and that stretched out over the course of about a year. It Because the guys at Osprey are doing a ton of other things. They got a lot of plates in the air and they're juggling, and so I would send in a draft and then it would be gone over, and then I'd get a response back in about a month that says, "Hey, what do you think if we move this here and combine these two parts? And then you have this section in part 6, but I think it should be up here in part 3, after this." And so you have to go, "Oh, okay." And then you rewrite it, reformat it, reorganize it, and then send it back to them. And then that gets approved or disapproved or tweaked a little bit more. And so you have, response time in between draft exchanges is measured in weeks. So, which is why they give about 2 years for something to, the contract to be signed and then the actual release date. And I was fortunate because Clear to Engage was done. I'm also used to working on deadlines. And so I stayed on top of it. And at one point, I had one of the editors say, "Hey, if everybody was like you, it'd make my job an awful lot easier." So that was a nice thing to hear and a
It's a
nice
nice
thing to
compliment.
say. But yeah, so that was nice. But yeah, that took a year and a half. Osprey did. Nightwatch, because the basics of the game are already done. That took a couple of months, and then with some playtesting. And it's a bit thicker. It's a bit more fleshed out.
And so what part of that process do you like the most? This is the brainstorming big ideas, or is the the balancing of a game, trying to make complicated things simple? So what part of the process do you enjoy the most, or find most
Oh,
important?
I like getting it all done. Um it's playtesting, because I can have a great idea in my head on paper, and then I'll meet up with the guys on a Tuesday night or on a Saturday or something. A couple of them will come over, and I'll go, "Hey, let's see if this works," and then it doesn't. It's awful. It's a terrible idea. Like, and then, or somebody figures out how to break it right away, and then I go, "Huh, all right, back to the drawing board." And the other challenge is when it's complete, it's a good feeling, but it's a challenge when you're in the midst of it, is trying to make sure, I translate the thought in my head or the concept in my mind onto the page clearly, and then communicate it to a reader. Or take a take a complicated idea and then explain it in a simple, methodical way, so that the intent and the mechanics of the game will come across to a reader who doesn't know the first thing about me. And even then, obviously, I don't do it right. There's still questions about Zona Alpha. There's FAQ. There's errata. Yeah, I still don't get that right. So, you know, what's really nice is when I see somebody that I have no idea, I don't know, and somebody posts a picture of their game online, and they're from Shanghai, they're from Denmark, right? They're from Russia, they're from Italy, they're from the UK, and I'm like, that's incredibly cool.
Yeah, that must be nice, seeing your work being played. The Facebook communities are great surrounding the games, uh, because of course people, like to make groups and administer groups. So the Zona Alpha dedicated group posts up, and then the Hardwired group pops up, and there's already a all manner of cyberpunk miniature games group. Uh, I'm really impressed the way you managed Stalker 7, the Facebook group, for your blog, and just that you've just hurled all the games in the same place. It works. It might get cluttered if the games were much bigger with an even larger fan base, but
Mm.
it's a nice dynamic, having Hardwired, Zone Alpha, and Nightwatch in the same place. Lots of
Good,
creative people
thanks.
there.
Well, I mean, there's good folks there. I mean, I think people enjoy gaming, and I enjoy the fact that I can contribute sort of to the gaming community, and that people like the games and they play them. I mean, it's not like I, stolen fire from the miniature gods here and invented something new. I just tried to make some fast play rules that let people use their cool miniatures and kind of get stuck in right away. And hopefully I've written some rules that are solid, that you can stand on and that you can game with, but then sort of get out of the way. Once you learn the rules, you don't have to think about them again. I mean, that's the hope. I just kind of wrote games that I want to play, is what it comes down to. Given the group that I have right now, um, everybody's busy. And we got kids, you got wives, you got jobs, you've got commitments, you've got all this stuff. And not everybody can, buy and then play and then memorize, a 300-page rule book. But people can hang out and eat pizza and go, "Hey, what do I need? 2d6s? All right, good. I'm good." Or they come to me and they go, "Hey, I saw this miniature. I have no idea what to do with it, but it's so cool because I like the way he's, got this big two-handed axe or whatever. I want to use him in the game." And I'm like, "All right, let's find out a way to do that."
So you mentioned you're playing RPGs with the
Yes.
minis with your guys. Are you playing
Yep.
besides your own games? You mean I write a game that I would like to play. Are you playing currently? Are you playing games that are not by yourself with the guys? Mini games?
Yes. There's the couple of the guys are into D&D 5th edition, and so they tend to run that. We've played some Savage Worlds, Interface Zero 2.0, and then Symbaroum. Symbaroum is a game that's kind of captivated all of us on one to one degree or another, whether it's the artwork or whether it's the simplicity of the rules, the way they translate to the table. Um, yeah, we all like Symbaroum, for one reason or another. So that's good. So yeah, so those are the games we play now. And then of course I've got shelves of board games. I've got games that I backed on Kickstarter that I'm like, yeah, I'll get to that someday. Um,
Yeah, we probably won't. But that goes for all
yeah,
of us.
well, I'm lying to myself, to be honest with you. I hope I get to them someday. But usually I end up digging out the miniatures and going, "Ooh, cool! I could use these in this game." We played a lot of Song of Blades and Heroes for a while because they translate easily to the tabletop. They let you use any miniature, and they're easy to support a narrative. We were doing a narrative campaign. I swiped the background from Band of Blades. It's an RPG, and I took the campaign map and the basic idea, and then we were fighting battles, on the tabletop, and then tracking the progress or our defeat on the big campaign map.
So just yeah, pick and mix whatever works. That's
Yeah.
that's good. So I have some of the questions I've asked you here is from one of the active guys here in the community, Last G, but he couldn't be here tonight. He also asks if you could name three systems from the past that has inspired the works you've published uh, here. If there are, and I think he's thinking about rule systems or game systems more like Stalker for Zone Alpha, of course, but can you name three game systems from the past that's inspired your current work?
Um, Game settings, you mean? Like you mean Stalker and Zona Alpha?
Oh yeah, but
Is
I
that
think
what?
he's thinking rule systems. I think so. If there are any.
Okay, so I would definitely say, well, there was a game called Ares, which is Song of Blades and Heroes is like a simplified version of Ares. That's my understanding. But the thing I liked about Song of Blades and Heroes is that it was open miniature, and it was simple. I mean, I could play that with my grandkids, and they understood it. Um, and so I think that the feel, the simplicity, and the ability to slot in any miniature and just start gaming right away without a lot of complicated rules. I'd say Song of Blades and Heroes or Ares, going back in its parentage. Um, that was a major influence. Gosh, I don't know. Warzone at some point, one of the iterations of the game Warzone, the D10 system. Um, I don't know. And then, okay, the Avalon Hill. The Avalon Hill board games, like Gettysburg, Panzerblitz, Panzerleader, they they had four stats on those little chits, I remember. And I remember, getting into a big discussion about the complexity of skirmish war games and how a lot of the war games seem to be built on the backs of role playing games. And they
Yeah,
had that level of detail. And then, but the Avalon Hill board games, were very, very simple in terms of the stats. And I tried to carry that over into everything that I do. Just you don't have, for example, like the combat ability in Zona Alpha. Instead of having a separate, melee skill and ballistic skill, or
yeah,
even ballistic and then heavy weapon skill, like you've got three numbers you have to worry about. And I thought I didn't want to do that. I just want to have one stat that people can do. And then the weapon that they have determines, their range or their effectiveness with it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I really like about Zona Alpha, because all the soldiers I've met, I mean, they've just been good at fighting, and the ones that were they were good at shooting, and they were good at taking me down when we were just wrestling about. That having how good of a combatant stat are you? That's a neat idea. Um, so Mick just asked here, do you prefer to run the games rather than play, or do you do a mix of both? I guess you'll be running
I,
a lot of games with the playtesting and stuff like that.
yeah, I prefer a mix of both. It's nice to kick back and let somebody else, run the game, and I can actually play and engage and not have to worry about, yeah, yeah, everything, from dice to the proper miniatures, and yeah, or remembering the nuance of the rule, or remembering like, ooh, I got to tweak that. I got to make a note here to, yeah, they should, yeah, change the modifier or whatever it might be. Yeah.
Yeah, because
So I do both. Sorry.
yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, because playtesting is that playtesting can be fun, but it's also work. You you have to have a specific mindset when playtesting.
Yeah. Yeah. It's nice when some of the other guys run, like a fifth edition or cyberpunk game or something like that, and I can just kick back and relax and not think about that kind of stuff. Just get immersed.
Yeah, and so immersion is that's really the big thing for me, and we've been talking some of the guys here. What part of the hobby is do you prefer most? I mean, some guys are insanely good painters. Some people prefer terrain building. Some people wouldn't mind playing with bottle caps. I mean, they enjoy the rule system and the crunching of numbers. I think one of the things that I enjoy the most is the finished overall project. It's putting the last bits on the table and going, well, everything fits together here. Miniatures, terrain, the rule book, the atmosphere, um, and then never mind the game really. But that when everything gets to another level that way, is there a specific part of the hobby you prefer?
No, like you, I think I'm going for that end product, that sort of moving diorama immersion look. But the one of the facets of that is that I want the rules to not get in the way. I don't want to set up all the nicely painted terrain or miniatures and then constantly be flipping back to the rule book. I don't want to be bumped out of the story of the game, as it were. I mean, I also enjoy the camaraderie, sort of the fellowship around the table, as the banter, the trash talk, the impossible shot that's made. Your guy's like, oh, there's no way I can lose this fight. And then he does. He rolls that one thing that he shouldn't roll. And then everybody's, howling and laughing. And it's just whatever. That's the part of it that I really like as well. When it all comes together and you've got friends around the table and you're gaming and the story is unfolding and it looks cool, and then or maybe a moment happens and then everybody stops and is like, yeah, that's awesome, and then everybody pulls out their phones and takes a picture so they can remember that moment. That's, for me, that's when it all comes together right there.
And do you always play in a group? I mean, you're mentioning uh, as a gaming group all the time, and I mostly play me and a single friend.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, there are times where like only one guy can come over. I got to play test something, or that sort of thing. Or I'm running downstairs, like I've written a bunch of stuff, and then I go downstairs, and then I'm checking out like the point of interest cards that I added for Zona Alpha, that sort of thing. Um, yeah, I'm usually with a group or with other guys. I mean, we try to game every Tuesday night. So I'm very fortunate like that. Right now at this stage of my life to have different guys. And then when I ran the after school programs and in the gaming room, there was always, my God, there were like sometimes there were dozens of kids, hanging out. So yeah, I'm used to gaming more as a social event.
Yeah, right. Uh, Mick is asking if you ever had a thought of an idea that sounds really good in your head or on paper, but it just doesn't work
Oh
when
yeah.
being play tested. And
Yeah,
do you have an
dozens of
example?
them.
So
Yeah,
does
do I have an example? No, not ready. I've probably been so ashamed of myself that I suppress that memory. Yeah, but if I had a quarter, um, I would, for every bad idea I've had, I'd buy everybody a bunch of miniatures.
yeah, right.
So yeah, I mean, everybody on here would get a new squad of miniatures for Zona Alpha. Yeah, I'd go to Anvil Industries and buy everybody a 5-man squad. So, yeah, so I've had plenty of those. But I think that's how it needs to be done. It's got to be play tested. That's one of the things I say to the guys when we get together, and we're play testing. I'm like, okay, so try and break it. And they're kind, and they do, but they're kind at it. And also, there's also things that are, because we've been gaming for such a long time. There's concepts or ideas or even definitions of words that are understood. Sometimes it'll slip through, like we all know to be reasonable or to, yeah, so yeah, I can't think of a specific at the moment, like what. um hmm.
So as Aska Astas has actually been asking to what you're talking about right now is like what are your thoughts uh, on the game developers, your role as a rule writer, your role or responsibility in regards to power gamers or uh, people playing rules as written to break a game. I mean, some guys play to win and they try to power game. Do you have any uh, thoughts as a designer
Do-
on your responsibility in
well,
regards to that?
yeah, I know those people exist. I don't game with them. um and I'm not, I can't do anything about it. I mean, I'm not gonna, other than not game with them, or I think I try to make it very clear what kind of games I write, what kind of games I prefer. I mean, I want my systems to work, but it's not an exhaustive system, and I know that it can be broken or exploited by people who are looking to do that already. But those aren't the kind of games that I write. Do I have a responsibility? I think I have a responsibility as a game writer to make my intentions clear. But then beyond that, I can't govern how people use my rules. Um, I mean, I'm very grateful for everybody that gives me positive feedback, but let me just say I've received negative feedback as well, with people, getting all up in my face about, why isn't this like roadside picnic, or why didn't, you're a jerk, you didn't include all these different types of anomalies, or why isn't your cyberpunk rule more, rule set more exhaustive, whatever. So I've also been on the receiving end of some pretty harsh criticism from those kinds of gamers, or people who just had different expectations. Um, and I'm like, yeah, okay, so my game is not for you. I mean, obviously you didn't read the first page, so, but whatever. That's on them, and good luck to you. For me, again, this is about the stories that unfold. It's about the moving diorama, and it's about the friendships that develop around the table. I don't need to crush my opponent to for anything. I mean, for
Right.
any reason.
And you're not writing competitive games. I mean, if you're a game developer for Games Workshop, you have a competitive scene. So they have a responsibility to crunch those numbers because a lot of people play them to beat each other as the purpose.
Sure, but to that end, speaking to that, no, again, I don't play a lot of. I've only played about 6 GW, 40K games in my life so far. So, but they also, as far as I understand it, they also developed their rules to sell more miniatures, and that they keep coming out with new miniatures and new armies, and then new codexes, and then new exceptions to the rule, and then ultimately, in about a year, 2 years, 3 years time, they got to come out with a new edition of the game, because it was built with a commercial, not just a competitive intent, but a commercial intent. Now, am I going to get a letter from the GW lawyers now for saying that? I don't know, and I don't mean that in a overtly hostile kind of way. It just seems to me that there's a lot of rules that exist simply to sell miniatures. Yeah, that's
Right.
my thought. That may not be true, but that's my perception.
So I'm wondering how far. I don't know if the people know. You're currently you're working on a. Is it an expansion for Hardwired, or is it going to be a standalone game? The
It's
corporate
going to be
warfare thing.
standalone. Yeah, it's standalone, player versus player. Standalone, but those are people that are familiar with Hardwired are will be able to drop right into it. I'm going to streamline the agent profiles and ability a little bit, because you're going to be because players are going to be handling more miniatures, and the level of combat, the scale of combat is going to be bigger. So, yeah, I'm working on that right now.
And that will take some kind of what kind of tweaks are you working on there? You say if you know Hardwired, you'll be familiar with the rules straight away, but Hardwired is geared, solo co-op towards an AI enemy. You'll have to put some more playtesting thought into it, being since it's a PvP game. I mean, how are you working with it?
So we've play tested 3 different games. The rudiments of the mechanics and like the table of organization and equipment and that sort of thing, that they're already jotted down on about 6 pieces of paper. And the action dice pool, the polyhedral dice, the enemies by quality, and so die type and available actions, that's already established in my mind and in the minds of the players here. So that's done. So we play tested 3 games. It's going to be, so I see somebody asking a question like how many miniatures and squad based. Yeah, let me think about how to answer this concisely. So your force commanders are the agents, and you'll be able to select specific numbers of agents depending upon what type of urban sector the mission is being fought in. Yeah. Hopefully that sentence wasn't too vague. And then, according to the number of agents you select, you'll be able to pick tactical units or heavy support units to go of varying qualities to accompany you on this mission. Yeah. So the mission, there will also be a gridded campaign map where players can track their progress, their victories, and their defeats. And then the battles are fought on the table, and the results are tracked on the map. And the idea is similar to Capture the Flag, in that each player is trying to move through the map and carve a way through their rivals' territory to get to their corporate headquarters to take it over. So the game is currently called Hardwired Hostile Takeover. So tactical units will be composed of fire teams, 3-man fire teams, or 3 drone pods. And then heavy support units are individual heavier vehicles like a mech or a remote piloted drone, a big remote piloted drone, a light vehicle like a motorcycle or a grav bike, a single big exosuit. Yeah, but so yeah, without there are 4 different types of territories on the urban map. There's commercial, contested, chartered, and corporate. And the amount of agents you can deploy depends on what the designation of the sector is, the district is. And the amount of tactical units you can bring with you depends on the amount of agents you bring. Does that follow?
Mm-hmm.
You work? Got that?
Well, we're trying.
Okay, yeah, sorry, it's not coming across clear, is it? Gosh, it sounds like I have to send you a copy of the beta rules. So without giving away the store, okay, so let's do this. So you have different agents from Hardwired, right? The Splicer, the Sawbones, the
Yep.
Ronin, the Razor. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
So you're going to fight in a commercial district. So you can bring 2 agents in a commercial district. Now, each agent can control a D6 quality unit, tactical unit. So an agent could bring along with them a pod of 3 drones, or they can bring a fire team of 3 troopers.
Okay.
Got it?
Yeah.
So you have 2 agents and then 2 squads or fire teams, let's say. But 2 agents can also bring, they could be, they're D6 quality, which means they use the D6 quality die and they have 1 action. But 2 agents can also say, we're going to bring a single D8 quality tactical unit. So you have 2 agents and then a squad of guys who are D8 quality, which is they use the 8-sided dice and they have 2 actions.
Mm-hmm.
If you have 3 agents deploying, you could bring 3 D6s, you could bring a D8 and a D6, or you could bring a D10
All right. Yeah.
quality
Gotcha.
unit with you. Got you? So you with me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Right. So in addition, so not just can you use, the cool corporate troopers that you've got, but you have that one big mech suit or whatever. So those guys have their D8 or D10 quality, and they have 2 wounds, a couple other and then they pick from a menu of upgrades. So a D8 gets 2 actions using a D8. They have 2 wounds, and then they get to pick 2 features from the upgrade menu. A D10 uses the D10, has 3 actions, and can pick 3 features from the upgrade menu. And the upgrade menu has things like extra armor, flight, a heavy gun, a targeting system for longer range, area effect, area denial weapon or something like that, like a flamethrower.
That's good.
So you can, in the same way, the atrocity traits.
Yeah. From Nightwatch.
You pick your right? So you do the same for that one cool mech or whatever it might be.
Oh, this sounds interesting.
Boy, that sounds. Hopefully, that's not way too confusing there.
Oh, that's pretty clear. Having read the other rules, and it's that's gonna be an interesting and different system. Nothing else really, comes to mind. Pretty simple to pick a force and the switching out, units that way. That's gonna be fun. Is it going to do? So in the book, Hostile Takeover, will there be, or do you have plans for a direct link to Hardwired, so you can, so in a grander campaign, you can easily, or are the rules written for running some Hardwired missions against the AI, and then?
Yeah, no, this is a straight player versus player campaign. I also have every mission area will have 3 objectives. And for every objective, you get a resource point. and resource points allow you to add additional forces to your additional units to your force for the following game. And so hopefully there's not only one objective in the game so that one guy wins and the other guy loses. With any luck, at least a player will at least be able to score one resource point. They might get two, they might get all three, I don't know. But so nobody's ever really out of the game. You can't just get totally defeated, have a bad run of games, bad run of dice, and then that's it. Your campaign's over, you're beat. You can always sort of you can always slowly but surely gather up your forces, gather resource points, and then you can always stay in the fight is the idea. Also, in the game, there's going to be chances for additional resource points if you can recruit civilian employees. They're going to be on the table. There's also going to be crowds of civilians who act like mobile terrain, who panic every time there's an enemy trooper in sight, and they sort of run at random.
Yeah.
And so they can get in your way, they can get in your opponent's way. And if you damage them, if you hurt them, you lose a resource point.
So that's
but also on the table,
really interesting.
Yeah,
with the bystanders there, because that's a mechanic in Reality's Edge as well.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh,
but it's a great mechanic, and Joseph McGuire, he said he tried Gangs of Rome, and in Gangs of Rome there's these mobs of Roman civilians running around, and he hijacked the mechanic straight from that because it works well when you're playing games in an urban environment. It makes sense to somehow put civilians on the board, but you might you should check out that section.
Yeah, although I'll feel bad. All right. Yeah, I'll feel like now I feel like I stole it. If you look on the
because you had no idea.
Yeah. Too late. Yeah. If you look on the Stalker 7 website, I think there might be some photographs from a test game where I have civilians on big 60mm bases. But I also took some of those civilians and I based them individually, and they're going to be employees. And if your squad or your agent gets in contact with them and then convinces them to join your side, you get an additional resource point. So each mission will have 3 definite objective, sort of victory locations, but you can get extra ones by sort of recruiting help for your corporation. Margin asks if bit like Merck's Recon with special civvies. I don't know, but I hope not. That's another one. Again, I don't know. Now I feel bad. I feel like I've stolen this thing. Here I was thinking I was all original and stuff.
Well, it's almost impossible to be all original. There are so many games these days. I mean, so many games for each possible setting. So
I think you should go for Great Minds Think Alike.
Yeah, definitely. Good one, Klaus.
Thanks, man.
You're welcome.
I'm really looking forward to trying out this hostile takeover, and there's an expansion, potential right there. Making some kind of written campaign. There's nothing. There shouldn't be anything wrong with you and me playing a PvP game, and then having, because we trust each other and we're playing a big campaign because we're in the same group, saying, yeah, I'm gonna play a straight up hardwired game, so the solo rules, and that will influence the campaign somewhat, and you're going to get a hardwired game as well. So it's not a way to get ahead of the other guys, but it could be incorporated in a campaign system.
Yes, I mean, and then to further another ploy that I thought was a war by other means. So if you can also spend you can spend resource points to add additional forces to your to your mission, additional units to your mission force. So you get the default table of organization and equipment when it comes to the number of agents that you can deploy. Sorry, the number of agents that you have in a district, and then the amount of units they can command. And then you spend your resource points to get extra units, right? But you can also spend resource points to engage in what I called war by other means, which is you can play a card that is like info war. And so that means it's going to be all the civilians are going to do what they can to disrupt your forces in the next game. And anytime you try to recruit and employ a potential employee, you're going to do so at a negative penalty. Or you can play cyber attack, which means that your enemies, any hacking or robotics are going to suffer a penalty in that game. Or you can do stock. You can attack their stock, your rival corporate stock, which means that they're going to be any additional resource points that they were going to spend on the next mission just got taken away from them, and that costs you resource points to play the ploy card, but it adds another dimension to the game, a little bit of that cyberpunk war by other hybrid war idea, where you can affect the outcome of a particular mission, not so much by direct combat, but by messing around with their stock or messing around with their electronic or informational infrastructure, by, taking out huge Facebook ads and messing with their people.
That's an interesting mechanic, and that's and it's a bit part of the cyberpunk theme to have all that besides the shootout. So that's gonna add a lot of atmosphere to the game, I think.
I hope so.
So yeah, we haven't really. Andres is asking to Nightwatch, and we haven't been talking that much about it. Congratulations on it doing so well. I just checked up that it's still on the top 6. It's on placed 6th on the top 10 on Wargames World of bestsellers, and it's gotten that silver stamp. So it must have done fairly well. That's nice.
Yes.
So
yeah, it is. It's astonishing. It's on some level it's really humbling. So I really am. I consider myself. I'm very fortunate to think, that people like the game, they enjoy the game, they're playing the game. So
yeah, and that's considering that Wargames World is only counting their the PDF sales.
Yeah. So yeah, I owe Margin an apology. I haven't gotten back to him, so I feel like a schmuck. So, so what is the roadmap? What are the plans for Nightwatch?
Yeah, if any.
None at this point, because my game focus is shifted on to the next version of Hardwired. And I've got at least one fiction project I'm trying to get done before the end of the year. I started a new series as well, like a fiction series, Beneath the Broken Moon. It's called Shattered Worlds. Broken Moon is the first one, and I've got to get the second book out. So, plus I have a short story bouncing around in my head, a cyberpunk short story bouncing around that I want to get done. I want to get it down. I want to get it out for the end of the year. So, unless more inspiration drops into my head unbidden, I'm going to leave Nightwatch, till the next year.
Well, it has plenty of material, and the 7 mission campaigns, you won't get through them that fast, and then there are plenty of opportunities to run different themes. That's what I'm looking forward to with Nightwatch. I'm going to start with a written campaign with the Necromancer, all undead, and then I'm going to go orc hunting for the second one, I think. Orc and trolls. Klaus is asking if you have any plans for an upgraded version of Hardwired now that you have, with the campaign and leveling from Nightwatch. We could call it a Hardwired second edition, perhaps, or another expansion pack.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I feel like I let the cat out of the bag with Hardwired. I don't see how I could upgrade the agents much more than they already are without making without making them incredibly overpowered in the game. In um in the expansion, the Sim Sha Sui expansion, I allowed for rerolls in a campaign.
Yeah.
Like you got X amount of rerolls, in the first couple games, and then if you survived, you got more rerolls. But I couldn't see shifting the die types or anything like that, or changing the idea of the SP, the specialization protocols, to give you more dice for a certain action, because I think that would just make the agents too overpowered, and then it'd be like, NFL linebackers running around kicking middle school, little, toddlers kicking puppies or something. I mean, and then it becomes not fun. So I'm not directly inspired at the moment to change Hardwired, because I think I kind of I it is what it is at this point, so I don't know if I can introduce the sort of the adept, the novice, the adept, the journeyman, the master idea back into Hardwired at this point. I don't think I could retrofit it.
Well,
Sorry, bro.
I
No
kind of
problem.
like I kind of like the description at the start. Now these guys are the top level. They are as good as you can find them. They have the best gear, the best armor, the best melee weapon, and the best skills. That's an interesting take on a game as well. That you don't start out as rookies.
Oh yeah, I mean, again, I was just like, hey, let's play something fast, cool, and simple. So, all right. So Grim6 is asking about Zona Alpha, and I have to say, I have no control over Zona Alpha anymore. That belongs to Osprey. It doesn't belong to me. And so, and my understanding is that Blue Books don't get expansions or second editions.
We haven't seen it,
So,
at least. So there's an expansion coming for Lion Rampant. That's a Blue Book historical. I haven't played
oh
it.
yeah.
I haven't played it myself. Um, and it's the same sized book, and it's the same like format, but it's red
Wow.
instead of blue. And people were
Huh.
asking to that, and they just said, well, this is not published by Osprey. This is self-published or published through another publisher with clearance from Osprey, because this is done, but it's your game. Feel free to publish other things. I know the guy, what is he called, Andre, who did Rogue Stars, also did an expansion for Rogue Stars that you can buy. So perhaps there is an opportunity. Andrea, yeah, thanks, Marian. Um, so perhaps there is a possibility for Zona Alpha if it has your interest.
Yeah, I know
I mean,
people are weighing in. Yeah, no, you're right. People are weighing that it was explained to me by my editor that they usually don't do. That was the explanation that I received, so I'm just going to leave it at that. Um, if Zona Alpha continues to do well, or if there are enough people asking about an expansion or vehicle rules or the second edition that's more fleshed out, they have to take that up with Osprey
yeah, right.
and not me. Sorry,
But
that kind of thing.
the Black
And I
Dawn
still gotta,
expansion
I have to be
is
careful.
awesome.
Sorry.
Is it called Black Dawn? The solo expansion for Zona Alpha you
Oh
wrote.
yeah.
So great material,
Hmm.
and thanks for publishing something like that for free. That's awesome. Uh,
Oh yeah, no worries. I mean, I enjoy what I do, so it doesn't bother me to, create more content. I've got no problem with that. If I'm inspired, or if I'm going to do that, I'm happy to do it. So, same thing with the point of interest cards. I mean, I think especially with solo or cooperative gaming, they work really well. They're much more enjoyable when it comes to a solo or co-op effort. I should probably tidy those up and get something. I'll do sort of as like a second cleaner version of those. Um, but again, that's on Osprey to do that kind of thing, not on me. So I can only dedicate so much spare time to stuff like that.
Yeah, spare time. That's a good one. Um,
Oh, Grim 6, it's called Black Dawn. It's a PDF on the Stalker 7 Facebook group files. It's a 5-part solo campaign. Okay, good. And if you want the point of interest cards, I think they're there as well. I know they're on my website, Stalker 7. You can download them and mess with them there.
and that's a nice blog. Good content you're putting up on.
Thanks, man. I try. I've gotten better over the years, learning how to take pictures and learning how to light stuff better, and I don't know, just getting a better camera, that sort of thing. Even then, I'm not really good at it. I mean, I think the stuff is decent, tabletop quality. It looks good. It's all painted, but I see some competition painters or some really, really good painters out there, and I'm like, yeah, that's why I don't enter painting competitions, because some of that work is just phenomenal, just ridiculous. So I'd be scared to pick up some of those miniatures.
Yeah, I'm really, especially all the cyberpunk stuff. I mean, mine is constantly blown away by all the neon colors and acrylic laser cut stuff. Damn cool. Um, any other settings you're interested working on?
Yeah, in fact, there is something ruminating. I was thinking of revisiting a concept that I had a few years ago about a resistance cell. A combination of sort of the French resistance during the Second World War and Twilight 2000, but set after Earth has been invaded by aliens. So it's a post-alien invasion game where you're trying to not just survive, but gather like-minded people to form a resistance cell and fight back against the alien overlords.
Cool.
That sounds really, really cool. Just to chime in, have you by chance played the XCOM series then, as for inspiration?
Yeah, huge. Yeah,
okay.
Huge fan.
Yeah, I just recently finished the second newer one, which has sort of the same idea that you're the remnants of XCOM fighting against the alien invaders. It's just, if you hadn't tried it, I would suggest it for some inspiration.
Chimera Squad?
No, the one before that.
Oh,
Was
yeah.
it just called XCOM 2?
Yeah, it's just XCOM 2. And the setting there is that you lost by the end of game 1.
Yeah.
You lost and the aliens won. And now you're playing the resistance. That's really good.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. So, yeah, I guess it does have a little bit of XCOM, but I think what pushed me over the edge to revisit the idea was a movie called Captive State. And it's set in sort of a present day urban America. I can't remember if it's Philadelphia or I can't remember where it is, where it's set in. But look it up, Captive State. And I thought, wow, that prompted me to look again into dig out my old notes and start pouring through them. This is a true story, and I'm not lying. But way back when, the working title that I had for that idea was called Falling Skies, and then there's some TV show appeared about the exact same thing, and it killed me. Like, you guys stole my ideas.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what you put out there. I haven't planned any more questions, but of course, if you have the time and people have more questions, please chip in. Meg is asking any idea when we'll see this new game.
Which new game?
Alien Resistance.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I don't know. Um,
Someday.
yeah. I gotta do Hardwired 3, and I gotta do at least this short story, cyberpunk short story. That's this year. Let's see if I can get that done. At least finish the draft for Hardwired 3, and then I've got to commission some illustrators and do the cover and that whole thing. Yeah. So maybe next year. Next year's the thought. Yeah, by Christmas then. Yeah, yeah. Yep. Sure thing.
I know Mr. Malcontent Torben had the best and most important question, at least for him for the evening, is how you come up with names for your games, because he needs a name for a game.
Oh.
Yeah, it was
I don't know. I usually end up throwing a bunch of names on a piece of paper, and then one of them kind of rises to the top. Yeah, that's how I do it. So I'll write 40 things on a piece of paper, and then one of them sticks.
Yeah, I know it's a silly question, and it was supposed to be a silly question. It's like asking people where do you get your inspiration from? It's like anywhere, everywhere.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
it's a good question, because there's these, awesome undertitles for your games like Zona Alpha, Salvage, and Survival in the Exclusion Zone, and Cyberpunk, Espionage, and Mayhem, and then of course Nightwatch, Terror, and Treasure in the Dark Corners of the World. They're great titles, and
Thanks, man.
they can tell a lot about what's going on at the game. So if you had,
I mean, here it's probably getting late for you guys, but it's in the middle of the afternoon here, so I can keep answering questions and talking if you want, but I don't want to keep anybody up. People got to function tomorrow.
Well,
Fortunately, I have a light week, so
I think we're spread across multiple time zones and sleep cycles in here. So
yeah, right. Yeah.
well, I
Yeah,
think,
I've got a light week next week, so I actually plan on working more on Hardwired and the fiction project, so that's good.
I have a quick question though, if I may,
Yeah.
about playtesting thing, because I was wondering how do you keep your playtesters motivated? It seems like you're just a good group of friends who just like to hang out, and that's
Mm-hmm.
really well. That's the best kind of playtesting group. But I've found that it puts a bit of a strain on people to always test new ideas, and then it doesn't work. And like you said, if you have a bit busy schedule, sometimes you just want a game to work, and then sacrificing a game night for playtesting something that might not work. I mean, how do you sort of come around? If you get what I'm asking at.
No, I do. I do exactly. I mean, every time I ask for a playtest, I feel like I don't want to be that guy who's always saying, "Hey, test my game, test my game, test my game, read my book, whatever. Take this home and read, and take this section of rules home." I don't want to be that guy. So I alternate it. I try to keep it very light. So if we game 4 times in a month, I might have one Tuesday night session dedicated to a playtest, and then and I've been very specific about what mechanics I'm trying to playtest with them. And then I might have one Saturday where one guy comes over, like, dude, I'll buy you lunch. Help me hammer this out. But the other regular weekly gaming sessions are like, hey, what do you want to play? Or let's create characters for Symbaroum. Or, I talked to one of the other guys. There's another guy, I call him, his name is Pat as well. So he's other Pat. And so I'm like, dude, do you want to run a 5th edition game? You want to do a one shot? So we alternate it, because I never want to be that guy who's trying to rope everybody into doing my stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna end the recorded part of this
Yeah, no
talk at this
worries.
point, and then it's just people are welcome to hang out and unmute themselves and just chip in. Again, a huge thank you for for joining us and wanting to talk and tell about all your projects. It's great. It really means a lot, and I consider this a huge success. Lots of listeners. So yeah, really, thanks a bunch.
No, thanks for having me. I really, really appreciate it. Good. Good. I'm glad it was a help, and I hope I'm happy to do it again if you want, or whatever. People that aren't members of the Facebook group should certainly join. Answer all 3 questions, please, and so you continue the conversation or raise any new questions there. Because I'm happy to help.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it's a good group, and you're welcome to check in here anytime. There's good hobby content. Thanks for listening, and see you around.